Start with the first, selling stem cells. Now what do I mean by stem cell tourism? Well, it's a broad term, but in general I'm talking about the selling of unproven therapies all over the world, unproven stem cell therapies. As Jonathan pointed out, the interest in the cultural explosion that has surrounded stem cells is truly unprecedented. It's in the press all the time. It gets a phenomenal amount of attention. And I think it's fair to say that this attention has created a sense of expectation. There's lots of research that shows that the popular press is the major source of health information for the public. And there's also lots of information, lots of studies that show that the way that science is presented really frames the debate and does create a sense of expectation amongst the public. So given that, I think that the ground is set for the selling of perhaps improper stem cell therapies. Now, of course, this isn't new. I think it's fascinating to look back in history. Anytime there's been a new sort of scientific revolution or a new scientific innovation, often new therapies are associated with it. Here's some interesting therapies you can get that are associated with electricity, that when the properties of electricity were first being explored. It's an electric belt. That sounds interesting. Then you can buy a magnetic suit. I actually think you can still get these, by the way, if you're interested. And this, of course, these kinds of therapies emerged when magnetism was first being explored. And now, of course, we have the marketing and selling of stem cells. And I think it's fascinating how they're kind of targeting the same stuff, right? Wrinkles, aging, and a lot of the marketing is extremely similar. Here, I love this ad. Paralyzing injections are so last year, especially when you can have stem cell creams to make you looking good, skin, blah, blah, blah. You know the story, right? I mean, you've all seen this before. This ad was actually in Vogue magazine, which isn't cheap. I don't read Vogue. I'm an L man, but one of my students got this for me. And this idea, this trading on the excitement, trading on all the attention that stem cells get. I mean, the term stem cells is almost a proxy for cutting edge, for scientific innovation. Because of that, you see these kinds of things, dietary supplements, and you can even store your stem cell for your pets in Dubai. And, of course, this has led to more serious kinds of marketing, where controversial stem cells are being offered really all over the world. Now, this is largely the selling of stem cell therapies. This is largely an internet-based industry. What we did is you just Google stem cell therapies, and this is what you'll get. This is some of your top hits. These are all clinics, relatively well-established. What I mean by well-established, they're offering services. Some of them are very well-established. They've been offering services for years to thousands of people. These services, all joking aside, they are offering therapies for very serious ailments, and many of them life-threatening, often children with severe disabilities, parents who are looking for one last hope. They're desperate, very vulnerable, and they take their children to these clinics, and often themselves. This was a website, and actually Sierra has gone to China, I believe, and this was I found a heartbreaking website that you could count down the number of days before Sierra got to go to China to get her stem cell therapy, and it was heartbreaking. These kinds of services have resulted in somewhat of a backlash all over the world, people calling for forms of regulation, a little bit in the popular press, but also within the scientific community. I'm actually fascinated with the way the popular press represents this stuff. You have both sort of the pro and the con, people talking about these as the last hope, but also stories that highlight how the therapies don't really pan out. So as I said, I'm fascinated in the tone of the media. Here's some very recent articles, one from the Toronto Star. This was very positive, highlighting this trip to Mexico as a last resort. There's no critique of the clinic, no critique of the science. Very hopeful story. Here's another one. And in this one, they even tell you where you can donate so this couple can go get this therapy. And you'll notice in the title, it says they're offering their child as a guinea pig for stem cell gamble. I find this stuff sad and tragic and a little bit maddening. Particularly when you consider that there is at least some research that shows that these therapies can be dangerous. It's not just financially burdensome, but it's also can be dangerous. This is a study that got a good deal of press of a child that got tumors as a result of stem cell therapies at one of these clinics. Tremendously tough to regulate. There seems to be a big demand, and if you believe the blogs, thousands are going. So how big of a problem is it if you believe it's a problem? As I said, it's really hard to tease this out. It's really tough to get a sense of how many people around the world are going to this, because it is an internet-based phenomenon. We're trying to tease that out by looking at blogs, but if this is just one example. This is for a big clinic in China. They claim to have treated over 5,000 patients since 2005. So this is not insignificant. You certainly hear anecdotes from all over the world. It's a big phenomenon. Here's an interesting study that was done by Deborah Matthews' team right here at Hopkins. It gives you a sense of where these clinics are located, as I said, all over the world. When you critique these clinics, what they often say is that, look, if people are informed, they have a right to go to these places. They have a right to try these clinics out. These are desperate individuals, and you can't deprive a patient of the right to decide for him or herself if she should go. And this is a very common technique for a lot of these therapies. They use testimonials. They use quotes from experts. Here's one interesting quote that was in China. If you truly understand the limits and potential of the benefits, why not let people go? Why not let people spend their money one last hope? In fact, this quote is from one of the leading scholars in the world, actually one of the leading lights, I'd say, in the last 100 years anyway, me. I couldn't believe it. I went to the website and there I was. I studied this area, and if you don't believe me, here's the website, and there's my quote up there. Of course, it was like a quote for a movie. They didn't take the rest of it, of the quote. This is one great movie if you like crap. So we actually try to study this phenomenon and get a sense of what's going on out there. And basically, I won't bore you with the methodology, we just looked at all the websites and what do they say? What do these websites claim they can do? And how does that claim match up to what the scientific literature says? What did we find? I'll do this very quickly. We found that these websites say they can cure, most of these companies say they can cure anything, really anything. There are basically very few risks, and this is routine and effective. Now, if you think of the struggles that Geron has had to get their clinical trial through the FDA, it's awful surprising that these people view their services, their clinical procedures, as routine and effective. Then we map these claims against what the clinical literature said or the scientific literature said, and no surprise, claims were not supported by any of the clinical evidence. I want to drill down a little bit on the idea that they can cure anything, because this is, I think, one indication of quackery. Here's this one website. I don't mean to pick on this one company, but it'll just give you a taste of what they say they can cure. They can cure any oncology. I didn't know that was a disease. It's a field. They can cure diabetes. They can cure nervous issues, immune problems, aging. Thank God I don't have that problem. And I like to map this onto the magnetic suit. So they cure very similar ailments, so you can take your pick what you think is probably more effective. In our larger sample, we looked at a wide range of therapy of clinics, not just the ones that offered sort of treatments for serious diseases, and they said they can cure everything. As I said, aging was very, very common. One could treat male climax. I'm not really sure what that is. And the other one I think is very common is autism, and I think that's very, very sad. I mean, these are often parents, as I said, very desperate, and we don't even understand from a scientific basis what causes autism. Who's going to get it? And here they are offering a stem cell treatment for this debilitating, or heart can be a very emotionally tough disease. Okay, how much does this stuff cost? What are people paying for it? We found there was an average cost of $24,000 per treatment. Deborah Matthews' slightly more recent study found even a higher average in the 30s, $30,000 per treatment. That doesn't include flying there, it doesn't include staying there, so this is not insignificant. So you often find families, trying to raise money through bake sales. It is really heartbreaking.